Welcome back. Today we're going to build a rear spar assembly. So I've gone ahead and already built one of these. There's this the main spar bar here. There's a doubler here on the back side of this. And over here we have another doubler with this little cutout here. And then a machined angle bar here. So you can see we have the plans here for both the left and the right. I built the right one first. There is a slight difference between the two. If you look here at the right one, this attach plate right down here, it actually goes right on top of the spar, and then it also has this aluminum angle extrusion here. It's been machined, and that sits on top of that. But if we look down here on the left side, the attach plate actually goes under on the inside of the spar, and the angle extrusion here actually goes on the outside, and it's also flipped around the opposite direction. So on the end of this one, the flat side of this extrusion lines up with the end here, but up here, here's the end of the extrusion, the end of the spar here, and the flat end of this does not line up with that. There are some very small pilot holes that Sonex has drilled. They're just teeny tiny. You can barely see them. If you're not looking for them, you might miss them. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the drill press and drill these up to a size 40 drill bit, which is a 3/32 inch hole essentially. That'll be just right for putting clecos into place to hold this all together. Eventually I'm going to be drilling this out. You got to get this lined up properly, but it'll be lined up and sit on top of this. So these 4 little holes, if you can see them here, they'll get drilled out, and then this will fit over the top of that, and we'll drill those holes out the rest of the way once we have it all lined up. This one over here basically just sits right over the top of these holes in here, and it just clecos into place, and then it's really simple to hook this one up. We do have to drill out a couple of additional holes that aren't in the plate, in the doubler plate here. But anyway, simple. So what I found works well with these attached plates, with these tiny little holes, is just to put it down on the drill press and just very lightly introduce the drill bit to it. As long as it's really close, it'll actually just, I don't hold this in place very tight. I just let the drill bit kind of center itself over the hole, and I just give it the tiniest little tug on it just to make sure that it's lined up perfectly in the center before I drill all the way through. And that seemed to work pretty well with the other one. If I got to the point where I drilled in, I only had like one hole, I think, that didn't drill in perfectly in the center. And so what I ended up doing is just flipping it over and drilling it from the other side instead, and it worked fine that way. Just, you gotta be gentle and go slow with it. Alright, we'll take a closer look here. You can see where this is one where I have not drilled yet, and this is one where I have. And it's important to make sure that your hole is drilled exactly in the center, or at least the pilot hole is in the middle of your drilled area here. You basically just have to let it kind of wiggle around a little bit. Don't hold it in place or you're going to end up moving it. If you just let it kind of wander itself around a little bit, it'll find the center and it'll go down, as long as you get that the point of the drill bit in there. Alright, so I've got all of these pilot holes just started, and then I'm just going to go ahead and drill through the rest of the way. You can make sure I use a little bit of cutting oil here, just to make sure that it keeps my drill bit from getting too dull. then just to make sure that the plate lays flat on the bed of our drill press here, I'm just going to go through and just lightly deburr this. I don't need to take much off, just enough that it sits flat and it doesn't make a crooked hole. So in my opinion, this is one of the most beautiful parts of the Sonex kit. These holes that I've drilled just line up so exactly with the pre-drilled holes in the spar here. I mean, there's just, I mean, every one of them lines up perfectly. It turned out so nice. I've also added this doubler to the other end of this. Strengthen up this hole here. You'll notice that there's some holes here that haven't been drilled into the main plate. I'll go ahead and drill those out according to the directions here. You'll notice that there's a couple holes here that are drilled, but we don't put any of the rivets into there. It's just these 7 that are right here that get the rivets in it. These 2 don't, but I do drill them out anyway. Same thing over here. We have several holes that are drilled, but we only put rivets into a few of these holes, so make sure that we don't do the vertical ones here and then these 2 end ones down here. And then here we put 2 rivets, and these ones are drilled up to an AN3 bolt that we'll put in later on. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is drill out these 4 holes that are right here. They're drilled into the doubler, the thick piece here, but they're not drilled through the actual spar. And those holes are where we're going to line up this piece of angle, this machined angle extrusion here. It's going to go underneath here and line up right down there. But before I do that, I'm just going to drill out these holes and make sure that I have them ready to go, so that when I put all this together, it should hold together fairly easily. Again, I'm just going to deburr this just to make sure that everything lays flat on here the way it should. So again, this is going to line up with the edge here, this is going to line up with the edge here, and then this flat area here is going to line up with the end of the spar. I'll tell you what, I'm going to mark this with a pen. That looks okay. So this piece of wood here is going to keep this from moving side to side, so I can just push this up against the back here. And then I've got my lines drawn here on either side of this angle extrusion, right in the center here where I want it. Go ahead and grab my other C-clamps here, clamp it into place. Here's kind of a view of what I've done here. I've got this piece of wood here that gives a nice place for this to butt up against, and it's lined up with the spar down inside of here. And then I've drawn a couple of lines right down inside of here and over here to line up this angle with. And then I will simply flip this over and drill holes right through this part, and have to be extremely careful to make sure that I don't move that at all while I'm drilling. Just gonna quickly flip this and see that I'm not moving at all. Looks like it's pretty well centered still. Alright, I've got one hole through and it looks like it hasn't moved at all, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a cleco in there and hold it in place. Alright, last hole. Alright, so you can see how nicely it's lined up here with the edge of the spar. It's also lined up just right here on the edge on either side, pretty much as perfect as that gets. I've got all 4 holes drilled at this point. 2 of them are going to be for rivets in the middle, and 2 on the outside here are going to be for and 3 bolts to hold it all together. Alright, we have several holes here that need to be drilled the rest of the way through. 4 of them actually, I guess not several. We've already gotten the other ones drilled through. Probably good to just stress right now, I'm holding from underneath to make sure I'm not putting too much pressure onto this bottom plate here that's only being held in by clecos right now. So I'm actually holding it from the bottom. I could just as easily stack it on top of this piece of wood when I press down on it, but I just want to make sure I clear the wood when I drill through. So I'm holding it from underneath in a spot where I'm not going to drill my finger. Alright, got all of our holes drilled up to the 3/32. Our number 40 drill bit. Now we're going to move on to the number 30. And a couple of these holes, not all of them, just a few of them. So the easiest way to realize which one of these you want to drill out and which ones you don't. Pull this off the tripod here. The side that has this beveled end on it, that's the side that we don't drill these 2 holes for. Leave those, eventually they're going to go, there's going to be a rib that goes right into here, so we're going to leave those right at the 3/32. The rest of these will all be drilled up to 1/8 inch though. Alright, so I've put Clecos into holes that I don't want to drill, just to make it easier to remember which ones I want to drill and which ones I don't. So these two on the very end, they're going to be part of a rib, so I don't want to drill those out yet. I want to drill those up bigger once I have the rib in place. All of these right here, they will be drilled up. These ones, again, for another rib, they're not going to be drilled up. These two will be, and then I will drill up these ones in a minute, but I'm going to take care of the rest of these first, and then get to that one in a minute. Alright, now just going to go ahead and up drill these holes right here. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 1/8 inch on that, even though in the end these are going to be 3/16 on the end. I'll just put a bigger drill bit in, but I want to make sure that these are centered at 1/8 inch first, and then we'll upsize them. Alright, looks like everything's drilled in there the way it should be. Time to disassemble this and deburr it before giving it a nice little paint spritz, and then putting in my rivets. Alright, so all of these holes here require CCP 44s except for these two, because we're going through an extra little chunk of metal here. We need some slightly longer ones. So these ones take CCP 46s, which are slightly longer. So those ones will go right down in here. And you can see they poke out just a bit more here on the other side. If I were to try and put a CCP 44 in there, it wouldn't quite reach or be long enough. Alright, these are all CCP 44s. Alright, time to move up to a 3/16 inch drill bit to make the hole for the AN3 bolts that need to go in here. All right, well that wraps up one more video. Thanks for hanging out with me as I built these rear spar assemblies. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. We'll talk to you next time.